Here today with head coach BJ Gotte of the Pearland Oilers. How you doing today, coach?
I'm good, thank you.
So we're in the spring, so just give me an update on what the Oilers look like so far in the spring.
I got a lot of work to do. I think everybody right now, it's cool. It's good to get to go out and practice and play some football. We had a long off season. Kids worked really hard in the weight room and training their speed and agility and explosiveness. So to get to change it up a little bit and go outside and put the pads on and compete and play some football is fun. But we got a lot of work ahead of us, so we're excited about it.
Now, that's probably going to be the answer you get from just about any coach because no coach is ever happy with where they are because they know they can get better. But based on last year and who you have coming back, and more importantly, who's not coming back, how are the kids are going to fill those open roles progressing so far in the spring?
It's been progressing well. One of the things that we identified as areas of improvement this off season was closing the gap strength wise. We felt like, we had to get a lot stronger and a lot faster and a lot more explosive over the off season, and we've done that. We've got a good number of kids returning on the offensive side of the ball, so we've seen that side progress a little quicker after our first week of spring football. Defensively, we only returned three starters, so we're having to grow some kids up. So right now, the defensive side of the ball is a little bit further behind the offensive side, but we've got a lot of young kids that have high ceilings that we're going to continue to develop. And one thing I learned, at the previous school I was at, building a program from scratch, is there are no shortcuts. So when you come in and you've got to, get the program back where you expect it to be, there's only one path, and it's through a lot of reps and a lot of hard work. So we're right in the middle of it, but we're excited.
Now, speaking of that, so championship history, of course, the championship history is there with the Pearland Oilers having won a state title in 2010 and played for one in 2013. And you have a state title under your belt from your previous school. Everyone has high expectations, but with you and with this program, those expectations have to be particularly high given your history and given the school's history. So talk a little bit about stepping into this role with those expectations.
I've been really fortunate throughout my career to be a part of some really great programs and work with some really great head coaches. I was fortunate enough to work with Mike Johnston back in the early 2000s and experienced success there. Worked with Brian Irwin at Lamarck, and we were successful there. And then came back and worked with Coach Joseph for a while. I've been around some pretty good coaches. Been fortunate to learn from some of the best, and so for me, expectations, regardless of where I've been, haven't changed. So, one of the reasons why this job was attractive to me was because of the expectations. I want to go somewhere where people take it serious, where it's important, and they invest, the time and the energy to make it as good as it can possibly be. So, I really embraced the challenge when we first got here to get Pearland back to where, the community expects it to be. And I think we can. We just got to put in a lot of hard work, but never really shied away from it because that's kind of how, I've been raised as an athlete, playing at Katy and coaching there for as long as I did and being around other great coaches. Just kind of comes natural to have those types of expectations.
Now, you came from one area that's experiencing rapid growth that's adjacent to or right in an area with a lot of football tradition. You go to another area that's experiencing rapid growth with a lot of good football tradition. Kind of talk about that community aspect. I know these aren't small communities, but both of them kind of have that small community feel to them.
Yeah, it's another reason why this job was very appealing to me was the community feel. Growing up in Katy in the 90s, we had three high schools and had a small town feel. Katy High School itself has been able to hang on to that a little bit, but getting to a place where you're in a school district where the school you work at is the school that the town is named after is pretty special. There's nothing against namesake schools or big school districts that have a lot of schools underneath them. I mean, there's nothing wrong with that at all, but there's a few places I think in the state of Texas that are special from a community standpoint, and getting to go work and serve at Pearland High School in Pearland, Texas. I think it's unique. And on Friday nights, the rig, we start having the success we want to have. They're going to fill it up. They filled it up some this year too, and the environment and the vision that we have, I think, is pretty cool. And with the community, it's going to be special. And me having two kids of my own, I've got an 8-year-old and a 14-year-old, to get them in an environment that kind of reminds me of the environment I grew up in was pretty cool opportunity.
All right. So we're in the spring, of course. We'll be going through the summer and all those workouts, but then the fall is going to come. So what do you think your outlook for 2023 is? What are you going to hang your hat on? What do you think you can accomplish?
Well, I mean, we want to be better than we were last year. I think, you keep setting your goals, and, we lost, 4 regular season games, and 3 of those games were by a total of 14 points. So we were close. We lost to Falls by 3. We lost to Shadow Creek by 4, and we lost to Dawson by 7. So, you look at those 3 losses, and 2 of them were district losses. We finished 3rd in district. And so I think it's fair to say that, one of our goals is to compete for a district championship. We felt like we competed for it last year and came up short. So talked to the kids early on about, we're going to compete for a district championship, and then, win our first playoff game. That's kind of what I learned at my previous stop was, the goals to win a state championship. And we talk about it from time to time, but there are other goals in between that we have to focus on before we can, talk about playing for a state championship. We've got to win games in our own district first, and then we've got to win a playoff game. So that's what we're hyper focused on. But, this is a championship program with championship tradition. So at the end of the day, that's ultimately what we want to achieve. So I think talking about it, but at the same time, staying focused on our goals are important. I think we're capable, getting our program vertically aligned from 7th grade all the way up, and getting our kids, developed from a football aspect has been good. We just got to keep doing that and improving. But I think we're very capable of competing for the district championship, and then, winning a playoff game and seeing what can happen from there.
Okay. Now you've been a coach for a long time. You've seen things from several different points of views, from being a lower level assistant to being a head coach. What would you say the biggest challenges facing high school athletics in Texas right now are?
Ooh, where do you start? There's a lot of challenges out there. The game has changed quite a bit. A lot has changed since I first started back in the early 2000s. I think, the perception of the game of football, I think, is number one. Promoting the game and the way we do it versus the way it was done 30 years ago, I think, is probably the most important thing to get kids playing the game. There's a lot of negative connotations about the game that have popped up over the last 15 and 20 years, probably 15 years more accurately. And, we've evolved as coaches, to make the game safer, to find opportunities to develop our kids without having to tackle all the way to the ground all the time, but not losing sight that the base fundamentals of the game are blocking and tackling. And in order to get good at that, you're going to have to do it, and doing it the right way, and being progressive from a technology equipment standpoint, also from a scheme and fundamental standpoint. I think that's important. But, I think if you had to circle one thing that's affecting high school football is educating people on how progressive that the sport has been over the last 10 years, that, you can play this game, you can have fun, and you can do it in a way where, your child's not as the same risk that maybe they were 30, 40 years ago.
All right. So one more question before I let you go, and this one's kind of a fun question to give us a little insight into BJ Gotte. What would you say your number one guilty pleasure is?
Number one guilty pleasure. I'm a movie buff. I'd say going to the movie theaters, watching a movie every now and then when I can sneak away. kind of a guilty pleasure. I used to do it a lot more back in the day than I do now. My time is a little bit different, but I remember then I would sneak away and just sit in a dark theater and watch a movie and escape for 2 hours. I'd say that's probably the thing that people really don't really know a lot about me.
What's your favorite movie all time?
Oh man, Shawshank Redemption comes to mind first. There's a lot of them though that are good.
All right. Well, thank you very much for your time today, Coach, and best of luck in the upcoming season.
Absolutely. Thank you, Tony. Appreciate you.
LoneStarGridiron.com. Access the complete history of Texas high school football, over 100 years of information, win-loss records, coaching histories, individual stats, records, and more. Lone Star Gridiron, the authority on Texas high school football.